Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. We are sitting here in early July and I'm taking the weekend off from fishing. Been fishing a bunch since my last fishing report here in Arizona, which has been a nice change for me. Rarely do I have this much time to fish here in Arizona in between tournaments. We've had almost a 6 week break between our last Major League Fishing tournament at Watts Bar and our next one up in New York. So I've taken advantage of it. I drove my boat home and I've been fishing in this Arizona heat. And fishing's been really good. I talked about in our last fishing report in June how good it can actually be in the summertime here. And that's continued. It's been one of the best fishing years overall that I've probably ever experienced in Arizona for a multitude of reasons, probably, but all of our lakes are pretty healthy. The fish are doing well and they're biting. Now, we are in the beginning of monsoon season, and that always throws a wrinkle into our fishing around our Phoenix lakes for a couple of different reasons, and I'll go into that. But really, the biggest thing it does is it can often trigger a big feed from the fish. So fish are notorious for feeding before and during fronts. And when these monsoons hit, it's a prime opportunity for these fish to eat. Now, you don't want to be out there in the monsoon. I mean, I've got tons of horror stories of my own and from other buddies that have been caught out fishing in monsoons, and that's not something you want to mess with. So I'm not recommending you go out there and fish in a monsoon, but it is going to change the way the fish behave before, during, and after that storm, and even affect what they're going to do the next day. Earlier in the summertime, just from what I was experiencing out on the Salt River chain, they were doing pretty similar deals every day as far as the times that they would run water, move current, and that would really trigger the fish to eat. When the monsoons start, that seemed to change a little bit. I had a hard time getting out on Saguaro Canyon when the water was actually moving, and that's going to make the fishing a lot tougher. When that current's going, the fish bite a lot better, and it was much more predictable in June than it is now. And I'm no expert, but I would assume, if they're going to do different things with that water if they're expecting a big gully washer monsoon compared to when they know it's going to be dry. So that's a big factor again. And all the lakes, that's going to affect the fishing no matter what. So it goes from a super consistent bite in June to, the fish you're not going to be doing all kinds of crazy different patterns, but the fish are just going to bite a little bit better some days and a little bit worse other days when you're dealing with weather changes like that. That's just fishing in general. Stable weather is always a good thing. Unstable weather is gonna bring unstable fishing, and that's a little bit what you experience in July and August. But we're pretty much, like I said, mid-July. It's the middle of the summer. I'm going to run through the lakes and run through some of the techniques that I'm using that I would suggest you guys use. And again, I always like to look forward, not backwards. That's one big thing about fishing reports is they talk about what has happened over the past couple weeks. By the time that information gets to you, it's already over with, right? You got to be thinking about what's going to happen next. What's the next pattern happening? By the time you read it on the wall in the tackle shop, it's over. It's happened already, and the fish are moving on to something else. So we're going to talk about stuff that I'm doing now and stuff I will be doing as we get a little bit later into this month and early August as well. But the one constant, on all of our lakes this time of year, it's topwater season. Early in the morning, sometimes in the evenings, but really early in the morning. If you can get out there at first light, it's really wise to be throwing a topwater bait, whether you like to throw a buzz bait, a walking bait, a popper. When it's really, really slick calm, or if the fish are on small bait, I like to throw this little bullet pop from Berkeley on a spinning rod. Really, really good on Bartlett, Pleasant right now, where the fish aren't maybe as big as some of the other lakes. They're eating small bait. This is a really, really good way to catch a lot of fish. And I fish it pretty aggressively, cast it over these deeper points, stuff like that, and fish it aggressively, really make it spray. And that's going to pull up a lot of fish, and you can catch a bunch of fish on a little popper right now. The standby for me is a Jaywalker from Berkeley. This thing you can throw pretty much in any conditions as far as flat calm or got some chop. Just a really good all-around walking bait. For me, I actually sometimes lean towards a walking bait over a popper because I can cover a little bit more water with it. It just takes less time to get it to the boat because you're not pausing it. With a walking bait, you cast it, walk it straight in. With a popper, no matter what, you're pausing it at times, so it just takes longer to fish a cast, and takes longer to get down the bank. So, and then if you get out in a situation where you're around some bigger bait fish, or it's a little bit choppy, a little bit windy, this cane walker, it's a big pencil popper. Don't let the term popper fool you. It's a walking bait still. You're still going to fish it, walk the dog with it, but it's got that concave face, so it's going to spray a little bit more water, attract big bites, and just attract fish when you actually do have, some turbulence to the water. So 3 great baits, whether you're Pleasant, Bartlett, Roosevelt, those are really the key lakes to be throwing topwater right now. I talked about it last month. You can catch them, Canyon, Saguaro, on the topwater, but you're just going to get less bites doing that. I recommend still fishing slow on those lakes, but early in the morning, topwater. And I know if you're an Arizona fisherman, throwing a pink worm is nothing new, but this is the time you need to be throwing your morning dawn type colors. Whatever version of pink you're throwing, summertime is the time that this worm was made for. This is a bottom hopper from Berkeley, but just something translucent, something pink. To me, even though it doesn't, to the human eye, it doesn't look like a shad, I think the fish see it as kind of a shad color. And they're eating shad and crawfish right now so much. So bust out your pink worms, throw a drop shot. I know it's a silly deal, everyone calls it sissy fishing, finesse fishing like that, but I've caught so many big fish this time of year drop shotting a little pink worm. I mean, more big fish on that than anything else, especially during the day. I mean, you can go out and get so many bites on that thing, but if you put it in front of a big fish, it's not going to turn it down, no matter what lake you're on. If you're on the canyon type lakes, Saguaro, Canyon, Apache, fishing walls is going to be probably your most consistent deal during the day. You can catch fish on the points and humps and stuff like that, but this time of year, when it's brutally hot, be fishing the shady walls. And it doesn't have to, one thing, that I try to use to my advantage when I'm out on the lake, and especially if the lake's getting a lot of pressure, is you're looking for shade because it's cooler. The bait's going to be there, the bluegill, the shad, of course, the bass. But you don't have to have a bunch of shade actually in the water, if that makes sense. You don't have to be on a completely shady bank. Just look for small windows of shade underwater. So that might be you're fishing a steep bluff bank that has some boulders on it. The backside of those boulders are going to have shade. Look for the more subtle shade, and if you've got a little sliver of shade in the water, that maybe is only a foot or two compared to a 10-foot shadow cast off a bluff wall, it constricts those fish into sitting in a much tighter spot that are more predictable. So look for shade, but it doesn't have to be a straight up shady bank. It can be subtle shade on a sunny bank, and you'll be able to pinpoint those fish even better. So throwing that on a drop shot, short leader, 6 or 8 pound test with a 3/16 ounce weight, that is definitely my go-to. Gonna catch them anywhere. Now, if you're out at Pleasant, Roosevelt, Bartlett, it's a lot more point oriented. Just get out off those points and just fish anything that's on the main lake, anything that's got main lake current, close to deep water. That's where you're going to find those schools of fish. You can get on your electronics and idle form if you want, or you can just start fishing the points, but you're going to find those fish close to the main current. It's the hottest time of year, and you want to be by the coolest water. That's the biggest deal. So last thing I want to talk about is night fishing. Night fishing is something I used to do all the time since having a couple kids and doing more traveling. I do less of it, but I still love it, and it is the time of year to do that. Again, if you're going to go night fishing, watch the monsoons. Be really, really careful not to get stuck out on the water during one of those. But if you can get out in the evening and then after dark and throw a big worm on a Texas rig, this is my favorite setup right here. A 10-inch power worm, 3/8 ounce tungsten bullet weight, and a 5/0 hook. Just a straight Texas rig on 15 or 17 pound line. You can fish it off points, humps, drag it. But what I really like to do is get close to the bank, flip it up to the bank, and just fish it back looking for a big bite. I'm a big blacklight guy. I use a blacklight at night. Some people don't necessarily like it. I'm not going to use a big, shiny, bright white light, but a little blacklight to be able to see the line really seems to help. And it's just a great time to get out and catch some big fish. Avoid all the boat traffic. A couple of good night baits. You can catch them really well on crankbaits on certain nights. shallow to deep, depending on where you're fishing. And then again, just your drop shot. But I do go to a darker color. Not that the fish can see colors, but I like that a darker color is going to get you a better silhouette underwater compared to the morning dawn. I'm going to throw something dark green pumpkin, black and blue, something like that. It's going to give you a better silhouette as the fish see it, or looking at it through the water into maybe the moonlight. They can see it a lot better. So, little bit bigger worm, 7-inch worm works really well in that drop shot at night. And, as far as what to do on the lakes, I think that's really a rundown of the baits to try. Like I said, let the monsoons really dictate how you're going to fish, right? If you are going out on the water for a couple hours before the monsoon hits, good opportunity to get some good fishing, maybe catch some reaction bait fish. If you're going out on the water after a monsoon hits, you're going to have to slow down. One thing that I'll notice is a lot of times after those storms, a lot of the fish suspend and become really hard to catch. The bait fish suspend in the water column, the bass suspend. So fishing those points and stuff like that where you're hoping the fish were on the bottom is going to be a lot more challenging. That's when you're going to want to go to fishing the walls. When fishing gets tough and the fish are suspended and difficult to catch on our Arizona lakes, the walls are a really good option to go get bit. You might not go out and catch 30 or 40 fish, but you're going to go catch 5 to 15 fish and hopefully have a couple good ones and salvage your day or evening of fishing. So hope you guys enjoyed those tips. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. If you're interested in going fishing with me, I do run some guide trips in the off time, so feel free to send me an email, azangler@gmail.com, or you could always reach out to the Arizona Fishing Guides, and they'll put you in touch with me as well. But thanks again for watching the report, and I'll be back with another one next month. Thanks, guys.